And his pastimes were very, very, when he came to Vrindavan, before Vrindavan was just a forest, and is it about 500 years or 550 years ago that he was probably one of the first Goswamis to be told by Lord Chaitanya to go and revive some of the places in Vrindavan where Krishna's pastimes were held. And how in that pastime, how Krishna comes to him in a deity form, which is actually Radha Vinod.
That's right.
But that deity form comes out from the that Kund he was sitting next to and meditating, and he was doing service. Finally, he was constantly doing service to Krishna by writing about the pastimes of Krishna, writing the glories of Krishna and Vrindavan and reviving those places. He was much pleased when Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami joined him afterwards as well. But he was serving constantly the form that Krishna wanted him to. So Krishna comes to him in that form and just says, serve me, you know. The first thing he asks is, please, I've been in this kund for such a long time, for a very, very long time. I've been submerged because of the Vrindavan was a thriving place before, but because the Muslims, the Mughals were attacking, it was demanded. So the deity was submerged in that kund. And then the deity came back to him and Lokanath Swami was carrying it in a little bag around his neck. And he used to cook. And so Krishna, Lokanath Swami is serving the deity very nicely. So Krishna wants us to be in whatever form that we can relate to and serve him. That's the form that we can behold. We may have a deity at home, Krishna, that Krishna comes in a form, you know, either in the form of Bhagavad Gita is come in front of us now. We are discussing the words that he has spoken to Arjuna, trying to understand those words, study them. So yeah, you know, Krishna is ultimately trying to give us the ways in which we can start to relate to him, you know, even in its Mahamantra form, the sound vibration. And in Kali Yuga, it's difficult, you know, Krishna is not going to come to us in his original form, but at least he will reveal as our bhakti unfolds, and our Bhakti Lata Beach, which you've actually gone through quite detailed, right? And as that fructifies, you know, but it's in our hands how we make it flourish. So that's I can.
Any questions, any comments, any doubts about this point that Krishna?
Sorry?
Oh, can you not still hear me? Huh? Is it still echoey?
Yeah, can hear you. A little bit of echo, but.
Right. Any questions on this point about the form of the Lord of Krishna, original form? It doesn't mean that one is forced only to worship Krishna. Devotees may be attracted to other forms of the Lord. For example, Ramachandra. Hanuman was attracted to Ramachandra. Even he had darshan of Krishna, but his attraction was still to Lord Ramachandra. And there was nothing wrong with that. Anybody?
Prabhuji,
Yes.
Haribol. In the Bhagavad Gita, there is a place where Lord Krishna say, think me in the form of Radha Shyam Sundar. Think of me in the form of Radha Shyam Sundar.
In the Gita, he says, think of me and fight. I don't know if he's saying Radha Shyam Sundar anyway.
In the form of Radha Shyam. There is a place in the Bhagavad Gita. Then Devaki requested Lord Krishna, when he came with a four-handed form, to come like a baby. It's two hands.
You mean the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, it says
Yes.
that. Oh, okay. If you can actually find that reference, that'd be good.
Yes.
That'd be good. Okay, if there's no more questions, we can shift on to... Yes.
Hello. Yes, I read or heard somewhere that Srila Prabhupada said that if you want to get a sort of your efforts to see Krishna quickly, do the bhakti of a Narayan form rather than the Radha Krishna form, because that's very difficult to get or see. I may be wrong, I don't know.
Well, so the gopis, for example, in order to get Krishna as their husband, they would worship goddess Katyani, who is expansion of Durga Mata. So there may be something in that. However, it is explained to us through the Guru Parampara that if we want to worship Radha and Krishna through the Guru, we approach Radha and Krishna directly through the Guru. So the spiritual master is the via medium. And because the spiritual master is actually non-different from the Lord because of his instructions, then actually we are on the right path, on the direct path to Krishna. There's no harm, Ananiben, to worship Narayan. There is no harm worshipping Narayan. You can only benefit by worshipping Narayan. But when one worships Narayan, then one achieves Narayan. If our aim is to achieve Radha Krishna, sure, we can pray to Narayan. My dear Lord Narayan, you are the Supreme Lord, four-handed form. My desire is to obtain the shelter of Radha and Krishna. No harm praying like that. But if one is attracted to Narayan, then one will go to Narayan. If one is attracted to Radha Krishna, one will go to Radha Krishna. How we get there? We can seek help. We need as much help as possible. So surely, if we seek help from Narayan, he will guide us in the right direction. Why not? Does that make sense, Manipan?
Oh yes, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Priti, you have a question?
Yes, Prabhu. Wanted to ask, what regarding qualities, we're always told that Krishna has like the highest. How, like, and the number that comes up is like 64. How many qualities does Ram have, and what qualities does Krishna have that Ram doesn't?
Yes, 60 is what Krishna, 64 is what Krishna has. 60 is what Vishnu Tattvas have. Ram included within that category. And what the four qualities, of course, Godhead has unlimited qualities. These have just been identified by the six Goswamis just to give us an analytical view of the position of Krishna compared to Vishnu, compared to Shiva, compared to the Jivas. So it's not that Krishna only has these 64 qualities or Vishnu only has 60. They are unlimited qualities, but these have been identified just to help us understand that Krishna stands above even the Vishnu Tattvas. And the four items, we've discussed it a few times. Anybody remember what these four are? What are the four qualities that distinguish Krishna from Vishnu? Anybody like to share?
It is one. It is surrounded by devotees. He has got more pitch. His bansuri,
Flute.
and the fourth one,
Extraordinary beauty.
Beauty, yes.
Extraordinary beauty. He plays the flute like no one else. He has extraordinary devotees that surround him. And also the fourth one, I believe, is his pastimes are beyond comparison. They're so incredible. Even Mahavishnu would like to come and observe his glorious pastimes. So those four qualities distinguish him from Vishnu. Is that okay, Preeti?
Yes, that's fine, Prabhu. Thank you.
Does that answer the question?
Okay, so like when he says like you can, it's fine to worship Ram, but even if he's not seen as the most topmost, I mean,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because Ram is the topmost for a Ram Bhakta.
Yeah.
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 Like,
but then probably like Shiv would be the topmost for a Shiv Bhakt.
Yes, Shiva is a very different category because he is not in Vishnu Tattva category. Shiva is in Shiva Tattva category, which is, although they're one, they're also different as well. And they're much more different than, so they are.
Sorry, Prabhu, I can't hear you properly.
They are much more different. Like Vishnu and Krishna are only separated by these four qualities. So Vishnu can still give you liberation. You can live with Vishnu in the spiritual world eternally. But with Lord Shiva, it's not the same because Shiva Tattva, although in one sense is the same as Krishna, is also different from Krishna because he has been in contact with this world. When Lord Krishna wants to touch this world, he becomes Shiva. And therefore he changes his quality somewhat. He begins to associate. He associates with the mode of ignorance. So although the mode of ignorance doesn't envelop him, but still that content makes him it makes him quite different from Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna. So Shiva Bhaktas, they don't attain the supreme personality of God. They don't attain the spiritual world. The maximum they will go to will be Kailash. And then if you recall, Kailash is, or Lord Shiva's planet is divided into two. There's one part which is in this world, material world, and the second part is in the spiritual world. So they won't achieve the second part of that planet, the spiritual world. They'll be within the material world, and they stay here. So Shiva Bhaktas will not reach Vaikuntha planets, let alone Krishna world. And Lord Shiva cannot award liberation, whereas Lord Vishnu, he can award liberation. Lord Shiva can certainly assist. For example, if one passes away in Varanasi, it is said that Lord Shiva will come and he will utter the name of Ram into the ear of the person who is departing. Hence, that person will attain the spiritual world because Lord Shiva is uttering the name of Ram into his ear. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, Prabhu. It's just like I just feel like in Shiv Tattva, not Shiv Tattva, Shiv Puran or something, it probably says something different. I've not read it. And obviously then Vishnu Puran, it has its stuff, you know, it's school of thought, it's philosophy. So
it does.
Like I know we're being taught along the lines of the Bhagavatam and the, I guess, the Vishnu Puran and all that. So yeah, I mean, I guess this generally happens in this kind of spiritual talk with people, is because people are referencing from different schools. So
Indeed.
yeah.
Indeed.
So okay, all right. Thank you, Prabhu.
You're absolutely right. You know, if you talk to a Shivite, you'd have a completely different point of view. But if we look at the scriptures, if we look at the activities of Shiva, if we look at how the scriptures are categorized, like this Bhagavatam is regarded as a spotless Purana. The Puranas can be in mode of ignorance, passion, and goodness, but the Bhagavad Purana is regarded to be completely transcendental. And similarly, the Brahma Samhita is written by Lord Brahma. Again, that's a unique scripture. It describes Shiva Lord, Krishna Lord. You know, we went through in some detail where the descriptions about the abodes of the Lord. So these scriptures are the essence of Vedic knowledge, and hence why we follow those scriptures. If Shiva Puran was the essence of the Vedic, we follow Shiva Puran, but it's not.
But Prabhu, is there? I'm sorry, I actually don't know this one. Brahma, Brahma. What did you say?
Brahma Samhita. Remember those phrases?
Brahma. Yeah, I do remember that. But the Brahma Samhita, did it turn up in like the Bhagavatam or like the
No.
Vishnu Puran? So
No, Brahma
it hasn't.
It's independent. It's written by Lord.
I see. Okay.
It's written by Lord Brahma.
Right. Okay.
Original living entity.
Okay.
After his meditation, after he got self-realization from Krishna, he wrote, and he received darshan of the abodes of the Lord. And actually, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati has translated this book into English. And, it's an ISKCON publication as well.
Okay.
Let me see.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Priti. Good questions. Good discussion. And let me see if I can open up chapter 12. And let's make a start on chapter 12, since we advertised it as chapter 12 seminar. So it'd be good if we can actually make a start on the chapter. So let's see if we can get that going. Just bear with me for a second. Now, can you see the screen? So who'd like to read?
I will read, Prabhuji.
Oh, very good. Very good, very good. Okay. I wanted to say a lot more about chapter 12 before we even got there, but we're not going to have time. So let me see if I can just open it up. We can maybe pick it up tomorrow. So chapter 12 is the last of the Bhakti Yoga chapters. And it is called Bhakti Yoga. So it's a very powerful chapter. And let me just do one more thing. Okay. Let me see. Yes, go for it, Nida.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 1. Arjuna inquired, which are considered to be more perfect, those who are always properly engaged in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested? Text 2. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be the most perfect. Text 3 and 4. But those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons engaged in the welfare of all at last achieve me. Text 5. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal future of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. Text 6 and 7. But those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Prutha, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death.
That's it. Thank you. That's the first theme. Now, so this chapter called Bhakti Yoga, and actually Krishna goes through Bhakti Yoga several times before even this chapter. And just to give you a flavor, we can go through it in a bit more detail tomorrow. But in chapter 2, text 61, he talks about meditating on him. 3:30, chapter 4, text 9, he talks about Janma Karma Chame Devyam. Chapter 5:29, he talks about Bhakti Yoga. This is the peace formula. Chapter 6, several places he talks about. And in fact, in these chapters, there are other verses which I didn't pick out, which he also talks about Bhakti Yoga. And Bhakti Yoga essentially is where one puts Krishna in the center of one's life. That's essentially what Bhakti Yoga is. And then chapter 8, he talks about Bhakti Yoga. Chapter 9, 34, the last verse, yeah, always think of me, always remember me, that verse. And then we got the Chatur verse, the Chatur Shloki, 10th chapter, where he says, Aham Sarvasupabhava, I am the source of the spiritual material worlds, etc. And then if we looked at the last two verses of the 11th chapter, which we just looked at, he talks about this unalloyed devotional service. And now, this chapter is completely talking about Bhakti Yoga. And Arjun first asks him a question. He starts with a question because Krishna has already explained to him about the universal form, but then he also told him at the end, Bhakti Yoga is the only way. So now Arjun wants more clarification. What is best? Is it best to serve your personal form or your impersonal form, your Brahmajyoti, the light that comes from you? So this chapter actually has three themes. That's the first theme. Krishna is being asked by Arjuna. What is more important, the personal form or the impersonal form? And in response to Arjuna, Krishna says that the essence of our being is to be happy. And this happiness is experienced through loving relationships. Now, you can't have a loving relationship with light. You have to have a person behind that loving relationship. So impersonalism is very difficult. Krishna does explain to him that one can achieve some sort of spiritual realization by worshipping the impersonal form of the Lord. It's very troublesome, very difficult. Look what he says. We can actually say there is those who worship the unmanifest, which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, etc. The impersonal conception, the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons engage in the welfare of all, at last leave me. For those whose minds are attached to this impersonal feature, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is is always difficult for those who are embodied. So we're not interested in that form of the Lord. It is part of the Lord. It's a light emanating from it, but it doesn't interest us because we want to attach ourselves with the personality of Godhead, with whom we can have a loving relationship. And that loving relationship is fundamentally important. We've got relationships with so many people in this world. We can't actually live without relationships. And we've seen the difficulties through this lockdown where you are stopped from having relationships with people, except through Zoom and other methods like that. And we've seen the difficulties in this. So many suicides have increased, suicide rate has increased, loneliness has increased. People become very depressed, stressed. So we need relationship, we need a Similarly, we need God and need a personal relationship with God in order to fix our issue, our problem, which is separation from God. So the lesson from this is to worship the impersonal form of the Lord is very difficult. It's quite a simple lesson. It's very, very difficult. And this is a little comparison of those who follow the impersonal path compared to the personalists. The impersonal path, they meditate on formlessness. How do you meditate? Very well.
That's the thing. तो एसोसिएशन का मतलब है समय देना, और समय देने का मतलब है उस तरह से समय देना जिस तरह से वो चाहते हैं. I know one of the father हमारे इस्कॉन द्वारका में है, कहता है बेटा साथ बैठ जा, बिठाया उसको.
Okay, I don't know what happened there. So meditating on formless, very difficult. Controlling the senses, restricting the senses, impossible. Rather, we can use our senses in the service of the Lord. In that way, we engage our senses rather than stopping our senses from functioning at all. That's not going to happen, not in this age of Kali. Try to understand the Brahman through the Upanishads. Again, very difficult to understand. Who's got the time to learn Sanskrit? And if we do learn Sanskrit but miss the point of Krishna, then we've wasted our time. It's a long practice, troublesome, and it depends on our own endeavor. Whereas if we take the route of the personal form, we're meditating on a deity, much easier. We are engaging the senses in Krishna's service. We're understanding the Lord through the chanting of the Holy Name, and also through the spiritual master who guides us, very nicely guides us. Very natural process, and it doesn't have to take so long. Even within this very life, we can achieve perfection in this path. Even if we start late in our life, we can still achieve perfection. Ajamil started at the age of 88, and he achieved perfection. Misery is mitigated by relationship with Krishna. So because Krishna is there, he will look after the devotee, carry what they lack, preserve what they have. And Krishna delivers the devotee from Maya because Krishna himself taken this process as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he loves us, he's our ultimate father, and his mercy is causeless. We don't have to deserve his mercy, his causeless. So, the point is, we attach ourselves to the personal form and ignore the impersonal form. We're not interested in the impersonal form. That's the lesson. And anything you'd like to add, Madhusudan?
Haribol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, we've touched on this aspect quite a few times, you know, when we say that relationships are based on personal or personalities. And, you know, Krishna is kind and merciful, and those who want nirvana or voidism or void or nothingness, or Krishna will even grant that. And there was one spiritualist, you know, by the name of Robert Hawkins. You know, I before I came to the Bhagavad Gita and I read some of his stuff, and actually he was quite a spiritualist, and he said actually in his life that at one time he just was seeking for voidism, and he actually got it, and he got stuck in this void for such a long time, and then he said because I wanted voidism and void, nothingness, I got that. And I got stuck there. And I was in that state for a very, very long time. Then I got realized, I said, I've had enough of this. I would rather have some activity, And he's actually a very renowned Western psychologist. He owned one of the topmost psychology department, and a practice in New York. So I read some of his stuff, and he always talked about. Then he started to talk more about consciousness and how consciousness is a symptom of living entity, which is the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. Once um, I asked Guru Maharaj, what should I try and understand or learn? And one thing he told me, he said, try to understand the Jiva Tattva first before trying to understand, Krishna and Radharani and the relationships and this, that's quite deep. But to understand the Jiva Tattva first, then you will start to understand how interactions take place and how devotional service takes place. So I said Jiva Tattva. Then I started to understand that, Bhagavad Gita starts from the point of making everyone realize that we are the Jiva as a spirit soul, and we are the active principle as Atma. And we have the qualities that Krishna has, but in very, very minute quantities, We like to have fame, beauty, but Krishna possesses all those 6 qualities of strength, beauty, opulence, and renunciation, and beauty, all beauty. So he possesses all of them all together, and he exhibits them. So we as a Jiva Tattva, we can understand that we have a relationship based on the jivas, the spirit soul, the spirit aspect, and we try to, because we are Krishna's little spark, as Atma, we are also Satchit Ananda. So we're seeking pleasure actually. So we can't get it from impersonal or void or merging in this Brahmajyoti or impersonal aspect. We want relationship, we want activity. So if we start to understand how we build relationships, starting with falling in love, and yesterday somebody was asking, how does Krishna expand himself into Radharani and all that? That's quite a deep concept, but to understand as a jiva, we also seek pleasure. So it's like asking someone, I mean, I won't go too deep, but if you have a friend, then the friend, what are you getting out of my friendship? What are you relishing in our friendship? What are you relishing in our love as husband and wife? What are you relishing? So if I ask my wife, what exactly are you getting out of your love for me? And to try to understand that is very difficult. So that's where as a Jiva Tattva, we have to try to have a relationship. But on a mundane platform, relationships are frustrating at times, disappointing. But only the eternal relationship with Supreme Personality, which is our constitutional position actually. Service will always be our constitutional position. You'll either be serving Maya or you'll be serving Krishna. So when we start to dovetail, as we've covered this before, dovetail our senses and services towards Krishna, and even a child, like I mentioned, Lokanath Swami earlier on, he just served in a very simple way, deity carried around his neck. He possessed nothing else, and he would just cook something and offer it to Krishna. And that deity form of Krishna, well, that is Krishna, is rather Vinod. That deity is in Jaipur actually, even today. And he served that throughout his life, that deity. And that's all he did. And other service he did was just writing about Krishna, glorifying me, and he didn't possess anything else, but he engaged his senses just in serving Krishna. So that's of a start, from there to understand. And then you made a point here, Krishna delivers devotees from Maya. So Krishna himself recommends that process, and yeah, like a father, paternal love. That's quite nice, his paternal love, his fatherly love. He says, I'm the seed-giving father of all living entities. So like a father, he wants to reclaim our souls. And he sends messages like Prabhupada is come. Even Jesus Christ, at one time I read the Bible and studied it. And I felt, I felt deep love for Jesus, because he said, Father, love thy Father who art thou in heaven. And all the people around him couldn't understand him. And just because he said, your father, you love thy father, and they just crucified him. So he was trying to give a big, strong message. But, Prabhupada says Jesus was a very special devotee of Krishna, actually.
So I wanted to check if anybody's got any questions. It's a fairly straightforward point, because Krishna is asked by Arjun, and Arjun asks Krishna, and Krishna just gives a straightforward answer. That if Arjun asks, is it better to worship the impersonal or the personal? And Krishna is saying, worship the personal, much easier. Don't worship the impersonal, takes too long. Anybody like to ask any questions on this? Straightforward point as far as we concerned, but many people may be attached to worshiping light. Raj yogis, perhaps, they tend to worship light. And it's very difficult to focus on light. Whereas what Madhusudan Prabhu said, as Jiva Tattva, we can actually have a relationship with the Supreme. We can't have a relationship with light. Everybody's happy on this point. Bhavani, are you there? Naniben?
It's quite clear now. And what Madhusudan Bhai Prabhuji explained, that either we are serving one or the other, Maya or Krishna, which makes very good sense. So better to worship Krishna, serve Krishna rather than Maya.
Brilliant. Very good. Okay. So we'll carry on with chapter 12. Bhavani, yeah? You want to say something? Yes.
Nothing, Prabhuji. I'm just hearing yours. That's it. Thank you.
It makes sense. What you're hearing, does it make sense?
Yes. Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, it's quite a simple point, but also it can prove difficult for some people to accept and some people to understand.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Yes.
Has Krishna said anything first is the more easier thing to devote to get to the eventual level of
Yes,
devoting
exactly
to him?
where we're going to do tomorrow, because he talks about if you can't worship, if you can't fix your
I
mind,
see.
you can follow the principles of Bhakti Yoga. If you can't do that, you could work for me. If you can't work for me, you renounce the fruits. If you can't renounce the fruits, you can at least cultivate some knowledge about me, like that.
Okay.
So
Great.
yes, definitely, he talks about these different stages. He shows his kindness, his tolerance of us.
Great.
Good, thank you very much. Shall we do the Shinga Kavacha? Okay, Karuna? Yes, right.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Shri Lakshmi Nrsimha Deva ki jai, Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. Narasimha Kavacham Bakshe Prahladena Ditam Pura Sarvarakshakaram Punyam Sarvupadravanashanam Sarvasampatkaram Chaiva Swargamuksha Pradayakam Dhyadvan Narasimham Devesham Hema Simhasanastitam Vivritasyam Trinayanam Sharadindu Shamaprabham Lakshmalingita Vamangam Vibhuti Virupashritam Chaturbhujam Komalangam Swarnakundarashobhitam Shreyasu Shobhitoraskam Ratnakeyuramudritam Taptakanchana Shankasham Pita Nirmala Vasasam Indradi Suramolishta Smuranmanikya Diptivi Virajita Padadhanvam Shankachakradi Hetivi Garutmatacha Vinayat Stuyamanam Mudanvitam Sarita Kamala Sambasam